So our speaker today is someone who we know well or not. He's always got a surprise for us because that's his style. And it's Timber Hawkeye. So Timber, come on up.
You think you know me, huh? I'm still trying to figure me out. I do appreciate being invited because while I love the message at Unity, especially today where it's like, be love, let's celebrate love, let's love everyone. Buddhism often gets a bad rap for being depressing because the first noble truth is life is suffering. And people don't want to look there. But when I heard the inspirational reading, when I heard the invitation to be love and live in love and celebrate love and love everyone, I often think it sounds like you're in this house and all the invitations are go outside, bask in the light of love and the nature and sun and enjoy all around you. And it's like, but I can't, I'm in the house, I'm locked in there. And what I love about Buddhism is it goes, well, what's keeping you in there? What is the obstacle between you and being able to bask in that light? And you've probably heard me say this before, that love is the absence of judgment. And so rather than focusing on trying to force ourselves to be full of love, all we need to do is eliminate judgment and love will be there. Does that make sense? That it's not about trying to achieve anything by reaching for it, but by removing the obstacles that help it just flow naturally. And no one can do it for us, unfortunately. A lot of the work I do with people in recovery, for example, like AA is not for people who need it, unfortunately. It's for people who want it. And so when we find ourselves unable to love, it's because we're in judgment. And if we remove judgment, we're there. The topic, every month I do a topic discussion in Ventura, and this month was about fear because it controls and manipulates so many of our decisions, so many people's motivations. And there's a beautiful story about a monk who was asked to fight fear. And instead of attacking fear, he just took a step back and asked fear, how can I beat you? And fear said, well, I'm way bigger than you. I'm way stronger than you. I'm extremely manipulative. And I can convince you of pretty much anything. But if you don't listen to me or do what I say, I have no power over you. And I love that. It ties in with no one can drive you crazy unless you give them the keys. And what I love about all of these is that it puts the responsibility back on us. Rather than blaming other people why we are the way we are, we look within and go, what is inhibiting my growth, my ability to spread my wings? And it's not anything outside of us. It's me. It's my perspective. It's my viewpoint. It's my judgment. It's my narrative. It's a story I've been telling myself. And the same thing about the monk trying to fight fear, and fear saying, if you don't listen to me or do what I say, I have no power over you. Same goes for worrying. You know, I often speak at churches and I go, how many of you believe in God? They all raise their hand. And I go, how many of you worry? They all raise their hand. I'm like, you can't do both. So, yes, we get together every Sunday and the invitation is to go back to God. It sounds, I don't want to say wrong, but it sounds, that it implies that we've left God and that we have to keep going back. And my journey has been, how do I just never leave? How do I stay with God? Because God never leaves. I just stray off the path and then have to bring myself back and stray off the path. It's like, so for me, taking the monastic vows was a way to be on a path that feels at least parallel. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not tempted to go off path like everyone else. It's very tempting. And while Sunday is important because the path can feel very lonely. When we get together, we're like, oh, I'm not alone. It's like we're climbing up this mountain and we're in this fog and we forget that there are other people around us. And on Sunday, we get to this clearing and we see all these beautiful faces of all these other people who said, I don't want to stay in base camp. I want to keep climbing. And we're not alone. And that encourages us to keep going. God has to be part of every decision we make. Every thought we have, every word we speak definitely needs to be that. Not necessarily, doesn't have to be loving, it doesn't have to be kind, it doesn't have to be caring, it doesn't have to be giving, it just can't be hurtful. It can't be judgmental. It can't be hateful. Like, that's enough. I don't know if that makes sense. Because sometimes we're in a really dark place, and when someone tells us, hey, be kind, be generous, it's like, I'm just trying to get up. So asking us to do more, it's like, so what I like about Buddhism is just before you do any good in the world, just don't do bad. Just start there. And I think that's achievable on a moment-by-moment basis. And I give myself a report card at the end of every day and go, how did I do today? And I was like, well, I got a B in patience. I got an A in intention. And if I wake up another day, I can celebrate that. And I can say, okay, I get to try again. Because I don't know who is, I don't want to say watching, but like we lead by example, and sometimes people are inspired by the way we show up in the world without us making that the point of why we show up the way we do. We just show up, and without us knowing, someone is watching and going, interesting. I never thought I could approach life this way. And if we're lucky, they come up to us and go, how'd you do that? How did you witness what I witnessed and not erupt, not get angry, not get fearful? And for me, the answer is because I've never left God. Does that make sense? We were talking outside before going, because as you know, I never know what I'm going to talk about when I show up. And yet, when I'm here, 99% of everything I do is a discussion circle. So this feels really presumptuous, because I don't know what you want to talk about. I don't know what you want to hear. I don't know, and I just come up and I do my thing and I leave going, I hope that's what you wanted to talk about. But I'd really like to hear from you guys, if we have time, just tell me, where do you find this challenging to show up, to speak up? And what was interesting is yesterday in the discussion circle, one of the people there was a teacher, and she goes, this is so interesting because everyone has a question, but everyone is too scared to raise their hand and ask it. But there's so many of us. And at the end of the discussion, I said, in a world full of people who are scared to raise their hand, be the one to speak. And in a world where so many people speak, be the one to sit there quietly. But I don't want to be presumptuous what you need to hear today. Is there something specific where fear or the love or God is, you're finding it difficult to implement it? Yeah.
How many tools to stop judgment in its tracks?
Yeah. The question was, are there any tools to stop judgment in its tracks? Stop judgment in its tracks. And I think of the habitual patterns that we have, like if you take a piece of paper and you fold it in half, then next time you want to fold it, it's going to fold in the exact same way. And our behavior pattern is very similar. The way we react to a situation the first time is likely the way we'll react the second, third, fourth, and that's just, and over our lifetime, we create a very deep crease. And that's just the way we just habitually react. Now, at some point we say, I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be that judgmental person anymore. I don't want to be that aggressive driver anymore. I don't want to get upset every time someone cuts me off, because guess what? It's going to happen again. I don't want to be that person anymore. Well, you can create a new crease. You can create a new behavior pattern, but it takes more deliberate intention. It takes mindfulness to go, okay, I'm going to take that piece of paper. I'm going to just very diligently fold it in half, and I'm going to create a new crease. Now, the old crease will always be there. I think of it like a scar reminding me of where I've been, but it has nothing to do with where I'm going. And so every once in a while, I'll slip back and go, oh, this feels familiar but uncomfortable. And so I go to the new path every time. I think I've shared with you guys this story about the elephant and the bamboo stick. Do you remember that? Were you here for that? See, and that response of, oh yeah, it's like, I forgot about that. But that is the thing. I'm going to make it really short. When they tried to get elephants to go through the market in India without eating all of the fruits and vegetables that are being sold, they realized that if you give the elephant a stick of bamboo to bite down and chew on, the elephant will walk through the entire market, walk past the bananas, right past the mangoes, and he's not going to reach for anything because he's already got that stick of bamboo. That's how my teacher taught me what a mantra is. A mantra is that stick of bamboo. So when you fall into judgment, it's kind of like you've dropped your bamboo stick, you've dropped your mantra, and all of a sudden you're reaching for anything and reacting to everything. But if your mantra is stay with God, remain non-judgmental, remain loving, remain kind, then it doesn't matter what's being thrown at you. And when it does get thrown, you don't blame what's being thrown. You go, thank you for pointing out to me that I've dropped my stick. Does that make sense? And most of us have a mantra already. Problem is, our mantra is, life sucks, people suck, this is horrible. And then we go through life and like, see, I told you it is. And we just, all these affirmations that we were right. And so I guess examine your mantra, examine your narrative with which you live your life and go, oh, because I don't want to blame that part of me that's judgmental, because then I go into self-hatred, I go into self-loathing, I go into judgment, punishment, shame, guilt, all of that. Then it's really hard to see the love and the light when you're in that place. So I don't blame the ego inside of me, the hatred inside of me, the judgment, the jealousy. I'm a very visual person. So I'm driving a bus, and on the bus, I've named all my demons. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's anger, there's jealousy, there's judgment. They're all allowed on the bus. Fear is definitely there. But they're not allowed to drive the bus. And so when fear goes, I have something to say, it's like, okay, let me hear what you have to say. But I don't have to act on it. I don't have to put him behind the wheel and say, have at it. You've seen Inside Out 2, right? Yeah. If not 2? Must, because in the first Inside Out, it goes into the little girl's brain and it shows all the people who are trying to get control of her body and mind, and there's joy, there's sadness and all that. And that's appropriate for a little girl. Well, in Inside Out 2, she's older. So now there's anxiety. Now there's ennui, who's just totally sarcastic. It's hilarious. But they're all characters in our heads. And that's fine. I make peace with all of them. But who's driving the bus? So when I feel the judgment rise up, when I feel anger rise up, I go, who's behind the wheel? When people say, Jesus, take the wheel, I don't think it's a way to give up. I don't think it's a way to take that responsibility and give it to someone else. To me, again, any reference to God or anything is to the God within me. And I'm like, as long as he's driving the bus, I'm golden. The moment things in life don't line up, fear rises, I'm like, who took control of the wheel? So there's no cure for anxiety, depression, all of that. But there are coping skills. So and those visuals for me, the bamboo stick, the bus, people get really stuck in the past. I do a lot of one-on-one sessions, and I was speaking with this really old man the other day who told me the story that he felt emotionally stunted since the age of 16, and that's why he hasn't been able to be in healthy relationships and all this stuff. And he kept going, and it stopped at 16. And I'm like, that was many, many years ago. But he's telling me the story of where he's headed in life, but he's looking in the rearview mirror. And I was like, there's a reason the windshield is this big and the rearview mirror is this big. If you're going forward, look through it's okay to look back every once in a while, a little bit, and I've dumped a lot of information on him as far as coping skills and tools to no longer live life through that perspective. And it was really interesting. I received a message back, and he said, "You're so right, because I haven't changed my haircut since I was 16. So when I look in the mirror, I still identify with that 16-year-old kid, with that 16-year-old narrative, and that just becomes the mantra of my life. And so tomorrow I'm going to go get a haircut, and I'm just going to start a whole new journey. Because even if does that make sense? Like this whole notion of you can't do the same thing and expect different results. I mean, you can. Good luck with that. How's that working out for you? Or say, well, if only other people did this, then I'll be okay. What can we do individually? So I don't think it's victim blaming. I think it's really empowering us to just kind of get behind the wheel. Like, open your eyes. There's a chapter in Buddhist Boot Camp called Buddhism as a Windshield Wiper. Because as you go through life, gunk is going to end up on your windscreen. Clean it every once in a while, just because it clouds our judgment and discernment and clarity. And so, yes, it's all about love. I'm not negating the message here. I'm just saying if we are challenged to just be loving all the time, then go, what's preventing me? And it's always judgment. When you remove judgment, all that's left is love. There's one other hand. Or no? No? Did you have a question too? In the hat? No? Okay. I just saw two hands earlier, but... Oh, there you go. One more.
Timber, I loved what you said about what's your mantra. And I've recently went through a loss of my adopted brother and a long cancer journey. But what I found, even though I've been AWOL from Unity a lot, what I found is I fell back on our 5 principles. And anytime I start stressing out, I go, there's one presence, there's one power in the universe and in my life. I thought, good. And what came to me is when people choose, I'm better, I choose Catholic, Unity's not Catholic enough, or I choose Episcopal. We're just looking for different mantras.
Yep.
The same thing.
Yeah. So for those who didn't hear, when she was going through a recent loss, it was like, where did I go at this point? Like, I go back to the 5 principles of unity. And that works for you. That's your bamboo stick. That's your mantra. That's how you get through it. Because we have all these tools, but they're useless to us if we don't pick them up. And so pick them up, and not just once a week. And not just when it's convenient or where you make time to sit quietly. Sit quietly when you need it. I know it seems almost counterintuitive when you're really rushing and you're going around and there's so much time and there's so much to do, and someone says, well, this is a perfect time to sit down quietly. But I don't have time to sit quietly. I love the invitation that if you can't meditate for 30 minutes a day because you don't have time, meditate for 60. So again, thank you for inviting me to bring, I don't want to say the good or bad or the different, but it's kind of like the white keys and the black keys in the piano. We need them both. And so yes, let's sing about love, but let's also address what's preventing us from getting there. And then when we remove that, oh my gosh, we see God everywhere. And she, he, they is smiling upon us. And our life is our message. It is. It's what I don't like the idea of living our life as if we are trying to impress, whether it be God or some stranger or our parents or our boss or anything. And we're trying to live up to someone else's expectations. I don't think fear is what we want to rule our life. But if I believe, and I do, that God already loves me, there's nothing I need to do extra to win God's favor. That's done. I just need to be grateful for it. And so it is. Thank you, guys.